I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, August the 7th, where we had surprising volume last week on your direct fed cattle negotiated movement, but a disappointing average. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but both of them were pretty surprising actually. We look at the board on Monday there. October live cattle futures down 45 cents to end the day at 111.55. Your August spot live cattle down 27 cents to make an even bigger basis there at 110.40 on a $1.14 fat cattle market in the middle of the month. But October feeder cattle down 75 cents to end the day at 152.27. August spot feeder cattle down $1 even at 151.85. Your weighted average on last week's fed cattle trade on a whopping 142,100 head. And I don't think anybody was prepared for that number whenever they got all the numbers put together with USDA mandatory price reporting, but that is a giant number. We had a number similar to that just 2 weeks ago, but then the lighter run that we saw the previous week to this last one was small enough that it kind of brought your packers in a little bit earlier, at least nosing around for cattle, but of course they still didn't buy anything until Friday. But the disappointing number I'm talking about, we had 60,000 live steers sell, and that's direct negotiated cash. And on a market that we all felt like was $1.14, well actually it was $1.12 to $1.14, and your weighted average ended up being on live steers 112.98. Now that is pretty disappointing when you feel like we had a $1.14 market, but that was still $1.25 higher than the weighted average from the previous week. Your 112 to 114 was steady to $2 higher on your base price there. Your dress trade had a little range to it, but it was mostly at 178 in the Northern Plains. That'd been $1 to $2 higher, and that was very close to that on your weighted average on dress steers at 177.96, up $1.74. You look at the way things broke down, you think, well, how did we have a weighted average live steer price at less than $1.13 when we had a $1.14 market? Well, you forget about Iowa. Iowa was not able to get that $1.14 only on a few deals. They were largely at 112. And they were backed up a little bit because the previous week's movement did not include a lot of dress cattle. And that's the way they sell a lot of their cattle there and over in Nebraska and the Northern Plains. They were backed up a little bit, didn't move any. But this past week they sold a lot of cattle live, and they were mostly at $1.12. There were 52,000 head of cattle sold in Iowa. Iowa is our largest negotiated cash area out of the 5 areas. And you think, well, it's all those little independent farmer feeders and things. Yeah, but it's not the big corporate feedlots. And Iowa usually sets the market. They're the only ones that sell enough negotiated live cattle to really establish a good market. The problem is that a lot of those guys in there in Iowa, nothing against them, but a lot of them are smaller farmer feeders, and they don't have cattle to sell every week. They don't have a good relationship with an agent or a packer, and they're kind of just out there on their own, and they get taken advantage of a lot of times, which the industry loves that. Except for all the guys that are hoping to get the market up. But you look in comparison, 52,000 sold in Iowa. Now there was 51,500 sold in Nebraska, but they had a huge movement in Nebraska. But down in Kansas, only 25,000 head sold on a negotiated basis last week. Get down in Texas Panhandle, only 8,800 head of all the feedlots you got out there, but they're largely corporate owned, aligned with the packing house, and they don't go out on the market, and they're never for sale once they put them on feed. In Colorado, only 4,600, and the same goes for that. But nationwide last week, negotiated cash, which is a great movement, 164,700 head, and only about 10% of those for the 15 to 30 day delivery. So You would have thought with that big movement that the packers were trying to set these feedlots up for a big fall, because there's a lot of contracts supposedly out there for this month, and they're going to tap into those. But they're not doing it on the 2 to 4 week delivery, so that's not how it happened. But interesting trade last week, regardless. But we're starting out the week here on our feeder cattle sales. Big sale, Western Video Markets having a big sale in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Here at DV Auction, very excited to be doing the online bidding for Western Video Market, handling that for them. Good bunch of people to work with. Wished I was up in Cheyenne. I was just there a couple of weeks ago at the rodeo, but I'd like to be up there with a lot of the good friends from out west that I've met since we started with Western Video Market. But I want to pull out a couple of big sales on there and tell you about those. The Iron House cattle from Oakley, California. They had 185 head of feeder steers, weigh 810 pounds. Now you look at the weighing conditions there, they got an 8-cent slide, 1 pound over the base weight. So you gotta like that pretty good, probably help sell them a little bit. But programmed cattle, they were NHTC or non-hormone treated cattle. They were natural cattle. A lot of the bells and whistles there, but 185 of them, 810 pounds, $173.50 for October. Max Salvera represented those cattle, and he's off a good auctioneer, but $173.50 for October. Well, what did I say that October feeder cattle board was sitting at? Ended the day Monday at $152.27. Wow. That's quite a bonus there for those cattle. Hope they're able to find that whenever they get them fat. But let's look at another quote. B&B Waters cattle from Binkelman, Nebraska. That's why I pulled those out. One reason because they were just commodity cattle. Another reason from Binkelman, Nebraska. My great-granddad hailed from Binkelman, Nebraska. He bought cattle in the country on the gravel roads south along the eastern side of Colorado, all the way down to Pritchett every week, and he always talked about and loved Binkelman, Nebraska on the Republican River there. But 349 head of feeder steers, weigh 960 pounds. Now, just commodity cattle. That's another thing I like about them. Not that I have anything against programmed cattle, but it's hard to judge the market, just like we talked a while ago about about programmed cattle. Now, commodity cattle, you can weigh them. Your apples and apples, oranges and oranges, and like my 3 girls, if I'd have tried to raise them all natural and non-hormone, I'd probably only have 2 of the 3 of them, because I sure pumped a lot of antibiotics in them over the years, saved their life and made them healthy. And yes, they did have hormones, because every beef we put in the freezer was full of them, and they seem to be doing all right and got a lot of leg under them. But 349 head of commodity steers there in Nebraska, 960 pounds at $152.50 for late August, and that's a heck of a price there on straight up commodity cattle represented by Ogallala Livestock Markets. Okay, let's talk about your feeder cattle market here on your on-site sales. Real-time index on Beef Market Central late in the day on Monday sitting at 150.39. Your latest CME index that come out for Friday, 149.74. So should get up there over 150 now, and we sure need to do that because our spot August feeder cattle board's at 151.85. Let's look at Oklahoma City, your nation's feeder cattle market here earlier in the week. 7,200 head, the Oklahoma National Stockyards. Feeders $1 to $4 higher, except for some 6-weight steers, which were $5 to $8 higher. Calves selling $2 to $5 higher. Look at National Livestock Commission firm there reporting on Cattle Market Central. Had 60 head of 643-pound steers, bring $168.50 in OKC on Monday. Joplin Regional Stockyards, 5,700 head, steady to $3 higher on their trend. Look at a quote on Cattle Market Central, Joplin, 54 head of steers out of Joplin, weigh 819 pounds at straight up 150. That's what your market is on 8-weight steers right now in the low 8s, or a flat 800-pound steer, and on straight up commodity cattle. And that's a good way to remember it there, $1.50. Let's look at an individual quote a little bit further north. Russell, Iowa had 65 steers, weighed 785 pounds at $163.75. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.